You are now listening to We Are Crayons, the podcast. Extraordinary conversations with Trinidad and Tobago's creative thinkers and makers. We'll delve into their processes, their struggles, and what drives them to execute continually as creative individuals. I'm your host, Donna McNichol. Enjoy. This podcast is a production of A Big Box of Crayons. Please review and rate the show by going to podchaser.com/wearecrayons the podcast. You can help support the show by buying us a coffee or two at buymeacoffee.com/wearecrayons. Today we have with us Rhesa Lessey. Did I pronounce that right? Yes. So Rhesa, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
I am the founder of Things TT, which is a local marketing platform essentially for small businesses and creators. It takes the form of a market that is held seasonally, as well as an e-commerce platform that allows these vendors to sell and explore new markets.
So before we really get into that aspect of things, I want to find out who you are as a person. What drove you into all things creative?
I would say I was always very creative. I remember being maybe 4 years old and telling my mother that I wanted to be an artist. And she said to me, maybe, you ought to think about other careers.
And why is that?
I guess old school thinking. She
Okay.
was an academic, so
Right.
kind of pushing me
Okay.
in that way.
Right.
So I never really let go of the passion or just being creative. She'd always encourage me, but she'd always, underline, academics. So I started off just kind of drawing, and then I did a little bit of graphic design, clothing design, and in me exploring the fashion industry, I realized that, there weren't a lot of opportunities for fashion designers and creators to really sell their products, especially if they were starting up and they weren't part of a clique, or they weren't fortunate enough to have some sort of connection in the industry. So I decided that I wanted to actually do a blog to bring awareness to other people in the fashion industry. The blog is actually still online. It was the Blue Sky Tie-Dye Trend Report.
Wow, what a name.
I know, right? Just very young and very creative and extra with the names. The vendors as well, voice the same concern that there aren't sufficient opportunities for them to expand their network and even to sell their products and basically thrive.
Right.
So that year, which was 2012, I started to explore the idea. I was familiar with my good friend. She lived in Chicago. They had a lot of street art festivals and pop-up shops and craft markets being very popular at that time. And I actually visited her, went to one of the events, and I was like, this is amazing. We should have something like this in Trinidad. And that's kind of where the idea was originally formed. And I held the first market in 2013, just to kind of test out the waters. I had a very small goal. I wanted to just have 20 vendors together.
Right.
I remember actually walking through Port of Spain and Tunapuna and handing out flyers to see who would be interested.
Or to get vendors.
Yeah, to get vendors to participate, because I had no real network other than the few persons that I knew, which was probably 5. And I wanted to get to 20. So that's kind of where the idea started. And the first market, it was quite a success. The first market was also at the university. So I had the support of that community to come out and, check out the event. And everyone was really excited because it was the first time for a lot of these students experiencing something like this. A lot of them were very surprised at that quality of product could come out of Trinidad and Tobago. There's this perception that, crafty things are, flimsy or they aren't stylish. At that time, at least, and not so much now. I think that perception has changed. So
because there are quite a few markets now.
And there's a lot more awareness now, I would say, than when I first started the market.
So how challenging was it for you to put on that first event?
Honestly, it was not very challenging for me because I was very detail oriented. So I had a list that had the simplest detail in it. And And achieving that or ticking off the items on the list was easy. The hard part for me was getting the confidence to share the idea with other people. So when I first started to plan the event, I shared it with no one. I kept it to myself because I felt as though I was not prepared to deal with any negative feedback. So I remember the first time I shared it with my mom was when I officially booked the hall.
Right.
So that was a huge risk. You know, there was no real turning back. So I think that was the most challenging part, getting confident enough in the idea to share it with other people.
In terms of developing the idea then, so did you have not even one person to bounce something? You just took the leap of faith and said, yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
I told no one. I started with an Excel document and did up a business plan because it was around the same time as graduating and just, learning about how to do a business plan. So
you studied business then? Or?
Yeah, I majored in management at UWI. So I said, let me put this together and see, how it is.
Right. Awesome. So how many years since then have you been doing?
It's been consistent since 2013. It's a few times for the year. So usually 3 to 4.
Oh, wow.
Times.
That's quite a run. How then do you find new people, or is it the same people that you have coming back to the market every single time, or do you get new vendors?
Well, the first market that I had was probably about 25 persons, and it's since grown. The most amount of persons I ever had was 130 persons. It's a huge market now.
Wow. Okay. Congrats.
Thank you. But a lot of my day one supporters are still with me, or even if they're not with me, it's because, they've taken a different direction. They've either gotten a storefront or they've just grown as a business and, have grown out of that space. So even though a few of them are repeats, I always get new inquiries because I think how I've positioned my market, it's really the first place for you to kind of try and explore and get new customers. So you get businesses within the range of just startup, persons who probably would have started up a month before to about maybe 2-3 years. So it's new businesses that it attracts.
Do you vet the products at all, or you just...
Yes, so we have a registration process. I have an 80-20 rule. So 80% of my vendors, I like to ensure that they create their own products. It's either handmade or it's produced locally. 80% of the vendors fall within that category, and the next 20% are startups that sell a product that's unique to that audience that I have, or they are university students, or they are non-profit organizations that are trying to bring awareness or trying to sell to that market. But the registration process is pretty simple. They give me a little insight into their business, their product, and we review it to just make sure that it's in line with what our audience is interested in.
What's one of the most memorable products over the years?
That's a very, very hard question. I want to say all, but that sounds like a politically correct
Yes,
answer.
I would say so.
I think a lot of unique products pass through the market. So I once had a vendor that he was into upcycling. So he used empty alcohol bottles to create lamps. And various light fixtures. So that was really, really interesting. You have artists that are there on the spot, they're drawing you as a caricature and, an anime and things like that. So that's also very interesting. And then I think it's memorable when you see a vendor start off with maybe cold press soaps and have expanded to a range of products. They now have 6, 7, 8 different types of products. So I think all of them are pretty memorable.
That's great. If you could walk me through how you've grown the market, the steps you've taken to ensure that it continues to grow from when you started to now?
So one of the tactics that I have applied is commitment to myself to do something new every year. So when it first started, it was just the event. The second phase was to use that database to send to companies who may be looking for local producers who do certain things. We can supply them. So that was the second phase. The third phase was actually adding the e-commerce front to it. The fourth phase was, doing digital marketing for some of these companies. That has been my growth strategy, to do something new every year. This year, one of the goals I've set for Think City is to do a lot more collaboration with creative people in the industry. So most recently, I had a live with Patrice from Uncovered to discuss just some topics around growing a business within the creative industry, some of the struggles, some of the opportunities to look out for. And the next upcoming collaboration I have is with Shelley-Ann Gadgeta, who is a Trinidadian based in the UK. And she has a company called Alpha that mentors small business to take them to the next level. So this year, it's a lot about collaboration. And I think that is kind of the trend across the board. A lot of people are into collaboration. It's really powerful as an individual, but it also helps your business to grow.
Has there been any advice? Say, for instance, you may have heard from somebody else or some, that you kind of use today to, further yourself or even to pass on to somebody else.
One of the things I like to enforce within the community is that it's great to think about your ideas and have your aspirations, but it's more important to take action. So even though you have a situation, let's say you're looking to do export of your product, and the idea that you have in your mind to do the exporting is not quite feasible for whatever market restrictions we have in the Caribbean, don't let that be the end. Find a very creative solution to get your product out there, whether it's having a pop-up shop ever so often when you go to these countries. Just don't let your idea die. Find a creative solution to execute.
Do you have any rituals that you use to put yourself in a creative frame of mind?
I do have rituals because I also have a traditional 8 to 4. I'm a professional as well. I get the most work done when I wake up. So I try to have my power hour for Think City between like 5:30 a.m. to 7. So that's one of the rituals that I have. The afternoon period, no, I just want to relax. So as soon as I get up, I brush my teeth, wash my face, and then I get down to doing work.
I hear that. What has been a sacrifice that you have made or had to make rather to make this dream a reality?
Sleep. I love to sleep, so sleep is definitely always going to be at the top of my list. In order to have balance between your professional life, your business, personal, I think you have to always sacrifice one or the other at some point. So I think balance is my go-to.
Right.
So in order for me to balance, sometimes, let's say I have work as well as Think City going on, I will definitely have to sacrifice, maybe my social life, some resting, that kind of thing. I will have to do some sacrifice in there, but I always try to balance it throughout the year. So for instance, on a Sunday, I don't do any work. So I try to squeeze back in, some personal time in there, some rest in there. So the sacrifice kind of comes and goes, but you have to try and always get it back to a balanced place.
Are you concerned about the other markets that happened?
I think that competition is healthy. Competition helps you to grow as an individual, but it also helps the industry. If it's just me alone, then there's not sufficient opportunities for the vendors to grow. It's not a lucrative field. People who thinking about, starting their own business to even want to invest, and if there aren't sufficient opportunities. I don't see it as a threat or concern. What does get concerning is if you see people trying to take your blueprint. That is the part that can get concerning, but I support many of those markets because I have mine seasonally, and sometimes the vendors are looking for additional opportunities for them to sell. I always say, hey, have you heard about this market, that market, up market, green market, south market? I always refer them.
So what or who has helped you persevere and not give up?
My vendors. I'm not going to lie, last year was a difficult year because I had some goals set for the business that I didn't achieve for one reason or the other. And it really did get disappointing. And I kind of asked myself to give up, so much at certain times in the year. Is it really worth it? And just having vendors, email you saying how much, they love the brand, they love what you bring to the table, and asking when is the next market because they want to participate, that really helps to drive.
How then do you get yourself in that mind space to take on something hard?
Honestly, it's just to do it. Like I think like most people within my generation, I suffer from some degree of anxiety. So Hey, you're not alone. I have a lot of anxiety, especially because the event is on a seasonal basis. I get anxiety when, the time is becoming much shorter. But what I do is that literally I might write in a piece of paper, today you're going to send out an email, and get yourself in the habit of doing things. That's really how I kind of push myself forward, because hey, if I start to feel anxious, my default is to just not do it and just sit down and look into space. So I think it's just in doing it. And I found for myself, I thrive on the little details. So I make notes and assign dates, and that's really how I push forward. And that's kind of the advice I would have for anyone out there. You need to find what works for you, what gets you going, what gets you to take action, and apply that. For a lot of people, it is writing things down. So that's kind of something I'd want to share and push.
If you were to have a billboard prominently displayed somewhere, give me one message that you'll put on it.
That is a unique question. It would definitely have to be something around supporting your own, like supporting small businesses. Trinis love to import things, and we still have this idea that American made is the best. So maybe, I don't know, I would say support local, hashtag support local, which is a hashtag I use across the board. So maybe hashtag support local, hashtag things TT.
What do you want to be most remembered for?
I want to be most remembered for being invested in anything that I do. So I have two passions. I'm very passionate about my professional life, but I'm also very passionate about my entrepreneurial projects. So the arts, helping persons in the creative industry grow in that industry is very close to me. I'm very passionate about it. But so is my profession, which is in digital media. So I think I definitely just want to be remembered as being invested in anything that I do. Today, those are my passions. Tomorrow, it may be something else. It may be, I don't know, inclusion of persons with disabilities in the workplace. I think passions evolve over time, but I think I want to always be remembered for being invested in anything that I do.
What about digital media excites you so much?
Oh my God, everything. I'm
Tell
a
me about
huge nerd. I really like digital media because it allows me to be creative and to live in a creative world, but also to explore technology and just trends in the digital space. From, very young, when my mom tried to push me in the academic route, I was just like, okay, well, I like art, but I guess, all right, what else is out there? Obviously, my interests were around what my environment was. And one of my brothers, he was into information technology. So I had the access of a computer from, very young, because that was his world. He lived in that. So when, he would go to work, I would fiddle and play up in his computer with his permission, of course.
Of course.
He's very gracious
Right.
to allow me to do so at such a young age.
Right.
And he would always come with new challenges to me. So I remember one of the first challenges he had was, hey, I have front page installed on my computer, build a website. I was like, what? How do I build a website? At that time, I don't even think Google was around in the way that it is. I think the search engine I used to use back then was Ask Jeeves. So I think that's where it started. I experimented a lot in the space with messengers and that kind of thing. So just having that interest and having that access, it was new. It wasn't anything that, a lot of my friends were talking about and I could really relate to. So I spent a lot of time doing research and experimenting with projects in there and kind of discovering a realm of people like me, people who were creative that also had access to technology. I think that's where the interest rose, and the fact that it allowed me to live in the both worlds. Just naturally, it's a passion, and I think that the fact too that it's ever evolving and evolving so quickly, that excites me. I like a challenge, and
We here put down the phone, step away for a little while. How do you see that fitting in with using digital media to, say, for instance, sell your market, but then still trying to be cognizant of the fact that people need to disconnect a little bit because we're getting like really hooked? Is that something that you struggle with? What do you think about that?
I think balance is extremely important in every single thing you do. So it is very important for you to put down your device and exist in the world around you. Because I live in that space, 24/7. When I am home, my phone is in my handbag. I don't, interact with it. I'm not hooked to the technology. I mean, I understand I work within it, but it's very important to maintain a balance. But in terms of how that necessity for balance and how that integrates with, promoting my market or just in general, promoting in this space, the good thing about it is that it's always going to be there, So we might be stuck to our phone and, refreshing every 5 minutes. But if I post something at 10 in the morning and you don't log on until 3 in the evening, you're still going to see it. So it's not that much of concern for me in terms of getting my commercial message across. But it is a concern for me when that balance doesn't exist in general.
Do you have any tips to share if I'm just starting out creating a product? How can I use digital media to kind of like spread that, I have this cool new thing I want you to see?
Well, I mean, I think I'll share a few pieces of advice. But the first is that firstly, you need to think about how you want to go about doing that. Do you want to start to share it as an individual, or do you want to start to create a whole new brand for this product? And that is the first thing that you really need to think about. You need to be mindful if you are sharing it as an individual that you need to take a very authentic approach to you. So if you are an outgoing person and you are and you want to bring awareness to your product, you need to fit that into your lifestyle. If you are more reserved, then your approach and your voice for bringing that out needs to reflect, because at the end of the day, people are following you as a person. If you start to take on an image or a role that you are not comfortable in, that causes a disconnect with the audience immediately. People may not be able to directly say that this is why they're not connecting to you, but on a subconscious level, it will be the reason why they're not connecting to you. If you're going to create a separate brand, you need to decide what that voice is going to be and stay very true to that voice, because that's important. What helps growth across social media, digital media, is authenticity. People like to feel as though the image that they are seeing within this social space is to some degree real. It is what it is. That's why you find so many of these influencers thriving. It's because of their authenticity on whatever topic they're talking about.
Awesome. So tell me, Rhesa, where can our audience find you and learn more about the markets and when they happen and all of that good stuff?
Okay, well, I am on 3 major social media channels, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And there is a website, things-tt.com, that you can find out more about the markets or register if you're so interested. Very easy to find. You just look for Things TT, very easy to remember, and you're likely to find me. I am Rhesa Lessey. In a big box of crayons, I will be rose gold.
Please share this episode with someone who would find it valuable. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts to get new episodes as they become available. Find additional content on abigboxofcrayons.com. Follow us on Instagram at abigboxofcrayons. We Are Crayons, the podcast, is a production of A Big Box of Crayons. All rights reserved. Until next time, remember, we are all the same in the fact that we'll never be the same. Stay colorful, and thank you for listening.